I'm getting attacked by my dog just as we go live. So, hello!
Oh, how cute.
Hello to Facebook Live, and hello and welcome to the Doctor Squee Show. I'm Doctor Squee, this is my show, and this is my dog trying to eat me right now. Say hello to Benny, everyone.
How sweet.
And
Aww.
and as you may be able to see by the current on her screen, joining me is singer and songwriter who's sung for The Simpsons, as well as being a reference on the show. She was singing about kissing girls decades before Katy Perry. She's had a
True.
song on the Clueless soundtrack in the 90s. She's written musicals and worked with Bernie Sanders on his presidential campaigns. Please welcome Miss Jill Sobule.
Yay. Hello, everyone.
How are you doing today, Jill?
Well, I'm okay. I'm actually in the Southern California area in the desert in Palm Springs, and there's something about it that the blue skies and the foliage is beautiful, but that almost seems almost more apocalyptic. There's something very apocalyptic about Southern California.
We don't need more apocalyptic right now, I don't think.
If it's not this, if the earthquake is coming any day now.
So, Jill, you were just telling me before we went on, you were out in LA when this all kicked off, and you haven't left.
I haven't left because I thought it was, well, I think travel was kind of fishy. And I decided maybe it was going to be a better idea to stay at my friend's really nice guest house instead of my hovel in New York City that, with the guys downstairs smoke constantly all the time, and I wouldn't be able to leave. And not that I have it bad, but,
Yeah, all I could think of was when I saw your little blog update, because you said about you had 2 changes of clothes, I think it was, and a hot
oh,
plate.
yeah. I do. So I have the guest house with the hot plate. I only have my guitar with me, which is great. I'm glad I brought it. But I have 2 changes of clothing, which I know I could just go on and order it. But I'm kind of liking the uniform. I'm liking my pandemic uniforms.
I mean, I don't want to be too on the nose here, but it did remind me of your song "Freshman."
Yes,
You're
exactly.
living one of your own songs.
What's ironic about Freshman was when I did that, and that was years ago. I talked about how tough it is for a songwriter, and I even moved to Brooklyn. I cook on hot plate, but now Brooklyn is way more, rent is way more expensive than even Manhattan now. So you can't go anywhere in New York anymore as an artist with a hot plate.
Yeah, well, things don't get cheaper, eh?
Where are you?
I'm here in Southampton in the UK,
Oh,
despite the cold weather.
nice. Oh, how great.
Yeah, so I want to take you right back to where you all started. It was in Denver, Colorado. You grew up, I believe.
I grew up in Denver, Colorado, which I thought was the biggest metropolis in the whole world. And then I went to go visit my Aunt Mickey, who lived in London when I was a kid in summers. And then it intimidated me so much. I loved it so much, but that was a city.
Yeah, yeah, it's not a small place.
No, but I was lucky to have that. But yeah, I grew up in Denver.
What
We
kind of
we
place did you like to grow up? How was school for you?
how was what for me growing up in Denver?
Yeah, growing up in Denver and did you get on with school? How was it all?
Well, Denver, I go back now and I'm like, it really is one of the most beautiful cities, I think. Not architecturally, but you've got a wall of mountains there, and the weather, it's sunny 300 days out of the year, and it's obnoxious because all the people, it's the most fit place in the United States. The senior citizens even are like kicking my ass. Everyone has really strong thighs in Denver, Colorado. But for me, and growing up when I did there, I mean, it was tough as my play that was supposed to be on these last couple of months. I have a one-woman show called Fuck Seventh Grade.
Yeah.
What do you guys call seventh grade?
I would have to try and think, like, is it primary
I'm
school? Is it
13 years old.
13 years old? So you'd be like seventh grade. Yeah.
Seventh, yeah. So
Year 7.
that, so I think it was this idyllic place to grow up, but like being a 13 years old, you could be in paradise and you'd still be the most miserable human in the whole wide world. So I think it took me a while to appreciate when I come back to Denver. You know.
Yeah. So it must be fresh in your mind, having written that, being as you were meant to be performing that at the moment.
Yeah, it was so funny when I was working on the play. I called people who I hadn't seen in ages, and someone who broke my heart too. Well, in seventh grade, and they're all on Facebook, and it was so funny just contacting people of hey, what did you think of me? Because I was writing. So, I talked to even the mean girls.
Yeah.
It was very illuminating. The one thing that was, everybody was miserable. The ones you thought were the most popular and the jockey guys and everything. There was a couple of those that were like, yeah, it was the best time of my life. And I'm like, fuck you, click.
Well, it's when those bullies and those popular kids who wouldn't have talked to you back then send you Facebook friend requests and stuff like that. It's so weird.
Oh my God, this is the best one. Is the first time someone asked me to date them. It was sixth grade. It was Robbie Naiman, and he was really popular, and I didn't really care about him, but I thought I should do this. This is, you got to do it. And it was when people would go out, they ask you to go steady with them, and then they drop you like 4 days later, and then go, that was the thing. And so Robbie Naiman, he dropped me, and all the girls made fun of me, and he told everyone I was a terrible kisser, but we never kissed. So that went around school. So I got an email from him saying, Jill, I know I was I hadn't seen him since he was 13. Jill, I know I was not a good person. I'm a fan of yours now. I keep up. Will you ever forgive me? It was the sweetest little letter, though. And I wrote him back in my kind of, what's her name? Like, I can't even think of, she was a great 1920s actress who was like, I said to him, I go, I knew you'd always come crawling back. That's all I wrote.
I love it. But you don't mind those ones where they come back a bit sweeter than they used to be. But like, it's just, it's just random when they send these like friend requests when you haven't talked to them in all that time. It's just weird.
Yeah, it is. This whole thing had been really, really interesting. I went back to Denver, and I met a lot of people that I hadn't seen since then. And you know what? A couple of them that I thought were going to be the big losers, or the ones that I thought were the mean ones that were going to be awful, and that you know what? They turned out to be okay, actually. They turned out to be, there wasn't a Trump voter of any of them.
Definitely a plus.
I know. So we won't talk about my step brothers, but that was great. Everyone turned out to actually do pretty good, which was really interesting,
And do you find when you're like writing about that period, do you go into musical styles that you're into then, or like
say that again?
When you're looking back at that time in your life, do you start going into the musical styles you're into at that stage? Does that kind of come into it?
Oh yeah, well you can't. you can't get over it. I was really into Bowie and T-Rex at the time. At the same time, I loved Carole King. It was this really odd thing. I really liked being glam. At the same time, I liked it was great because I had an older brother who 6 years older. So while I was listening to some, whatever my friends were listening to, he brought home Dylan records and John Prine records. And so I had all these amazing singer-songwriters yeah, so that was kind of a great thing. I had a lot of great music.
Yeah.
And yeah, of course I know and you know what? I even learned to appreciate now the music my parents were playing at the time, like all the great Burt Bacharach and Stan Getz and Joe Beam. And so I can see even in the play, there's a little song called Open Mic Night, and it's complete ripoff of Waters of March.
Oh, that's nice. I mean, I remember when I was young, my dad never used to play any music. I only found out that he kind of like had a cool past when I discovered his old records, and he had like Simon and Garfunkel and Bit Bowie and all this like wonderful stuff.
That's so great. So did it give you more respect for him?
Oh, completely. Like it was like it's when he retired because like he was fairly old when I was born, like relatively for a parent anyway. And I just discovered all like he suddenly started listening to music and he cracked out all those old records and stuff. And I'm like, why did you never mention any of this stuff before? Like, this is awesome.
Ah, that's so fantastic. So what was when you were 13? I'm obviously older. What were you listening to?
Well, I think I had that experience of my older brother, kind of like his record collection became what I went into. So, like, he had Huey Lewis and the News. I still love to this day. I still think I love their little kind of last LP that they, put out recently. I still swear they're great. He had some old blue stuff, and it was kind of like 80s metal rock. So it was like, Poison and Guns N' Roses and all that kind of stuff. So kind of quite a little eclectic mix.
So you had a good mix of stuff. Yeah. And what were
Yeah.
your friends listening to more?
Oh, I like whatever was in the charts probably. So like, God, Bros just suddenly came to mind. Did you get Bros over there?
Was who?
Did you get Bros over there?
No.
That was like like these guys who were twins who had this like pop act, and you had that and Take That, and there was kind of like all those kind of like chart kind of stuff.
Was that good that we didn't have that?
Yeah, I think it was good that you didn't have that. It was not great. It's the kind of like what were the like sort of like Backstreet Boys, which were also kind of
Oh, yeah,
that
yeah,
kind
yeah, yeah.
of it's like okay as it goes, but it's kind of
Boy
like
band.
pop of the time, that kind of thing. So I was kind of like I was very appreciative. I at least got into some real music, and so I kind of had a great appreciation for that.
Well, they say it's interesting. I was reading an article, maybe I made it up, um, where you go in your comfort zone is that period. Like if you were going to listen to music right now and you were in you're sequestered, I'm sequestered, and I want to go into a sort of comfort zone and I go on my shuffle my stuff or look around, there's a good percentage I might go into stuff that maybe was the stuff that influenced me from that years of 8 to 18.
Yeah, I did find myself going back to like, well, it's an evergreen for me, but Queen, like, is always a good one to go back to for me.
And
That was
every
like
generation can go there.
yeah, exactly. Like they were the band of the 60s, 70s, 80s. Like, yeah, it goes on. It was wonderful.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting, and right now I'm trying to go like, okay, no, 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 no. I heard this new album is really great. I'm gonna go listen to it, and so it's almost like, and then once I do, it's fantastic if it's a great record. But it's almost like lately in my mindset, it's almost a chore. I wanna It's like my last record, Nostalgia Kills. I want to kind of go back inside.
So, like, how do you go from these kind of wonderful musical influences to kind of deciding, like, I think I could do that?
Well, I think interesting. Well, part of the seventh grade show starts off when I'm in sixth grade because my brother, my older brother, had the rock band, and my parents were the cool parents that let them rehearse in the basement. And I begged my parents. First, I begged them I wanted to have a drum set. I wanted to be Bonham, you know. And I got a drum set when I was really little, small, but somehow they convinced me guitar was a much nicer instrument. I'm sure it was horrible to be around, but I had a Gibson SG. I got to use my brother's Marshall amp, and I was like 4'1", and I was in the stage band. I was the cool girl guitar player, and then all of a sudden, somehow, around that period of 13, 14, it was like, no, it's not cool at that time to be, compete with the boys, be a rock guitar player. Girls finger pick. Girls play like Joni. Girls or Joan Baez or Carole King. Girls don't rock. And in a way, there was hardly, when I was young, there really weren't that many role models at all. They were like, you had the Runaways, this was and they were girl bands, Go-Go's, or, the Bangles, but they're, the Bonnie Raitt was a great guitar player.
Yeah.
But I didn't have any role models, and it was a weird thing. So then I started, on one hand it was good, on one hand it was bad, because I think I could have been like the best shredder in the entire planet.
Yeah.
And I still play, like I was the guitar player for Lloyd Cole's band, in the Negatives. But I started playing acoustic and then thinking like, oh, I should be a songwriter. And I listened to my brother's records of, say, Leonard Cohen and John Prine and Dylan, and I thought, wow, they're telling stories. This is amazing. So I think on one hand it was a horrible thing that I didn't have encouragement to be the shredder. But then I'm not sure I would have really focused, on the other hand, on the songwriting. And I'm glad I had my older brother's records, that was, I inspired to the best.
And do you remember some of the kind of earlier gigs when you started gigging around?
Oh my God. Well, we had, I'll tell you what happened is I didn't, I wrote really shitty songs actually. First, I was really bad, but when I'd play cover songs. I had a band in college, but first year and last year in high school. But it was my junior year abroad program, and it was in Spain. And a friend of mine said, let's go busk on the street where all the street musicians play. It was in Sevilla. And we got out there, and I thought, I'm just going to try playing my own songs because I'll never see these people again, and they probably have no idea what I'm singing about anyway. So, So a guy stopped by, and he, with his big dog, I remember I had a big Great Dane, and he said he owned a nightclub, and would we like to play his nightclub? And first we were like, yeah, sure, two young American girls, but it ended up being legitimate. And I ended up dropping out of school and playing 3 hours a night in this guy's club. And I sometimes think if that guy hadn't walked by, I wonder if my life would have been completely different. If I would have gone a different direction. Wow. So I think about that. Then I came home to Denver, and I played started with open mic nights. You guys have open mic nights, right?
Yeah,
All the
yeah. I love them. It's like the you can get from the best to the worst in one act. It's wonderful, and like just everyone goes up with just such. It's usually such like purity of intent. It's great.
it was so sweet. So every other Tuesday at the lounge at the Holiday Inn on Colorado Boulevard in Denver, I would play. And you know what? I started getting some acclaim at that Holiday Inn, you know. And then I got my own night. Ooh.
Ooh.
And then after that, you want to know something? Having my own night. I mean, that's all I aspired to. It was pretty fantastic, and I got $100. That was unheard of. I mean, still, that was the best gig I ever had. And I never felt more successful than then. I really didn't think about, you know, oh, I'm going to go to New York or LA or London and get a record deal. I mean, this was the shit. This was, you know, that was that. So that's where I got started, cutting my teeth at the open mic nights, and then I put together a band with musicians that I'd met at the open mic nights, and had my own night with a band, a real live band.
And I just had a message up from my buddy Matt Leeds. His open mic was Tuesdays to the Boathouse in Victoria Park.
Then he did what?
He, my friend Matt Leeds, he's a musician too. He's saying about his, he used to do the open mic nights on a Tuesday too in the Boathouse in Victoria Park over in Canada.
Oh, that sounds a lot nicer than the lounge at the Holiday Inn, I have to say. That sounds like a way better open mic night, I have to admit.
I gotta say, like, I do love hearing about these kind of early gigs, whether it's like talking to people in music or comedy, because I've listened to people like comedians, and it's just that wonderful thing of building up from your 5 minutes or your like 2 songs to your whole set. Just seems like that's the moment when you know you've made it, when you've got your night, like you're saying there.
It's great. It's so great. You know what? I'd love to go do some open mic nights. Actually, that'd be really great. That would be a really fun thing to do again. Just show up as somebody, you know. And I know I did. You know, musicians, we don't do the karaoke. You know, I'm not a. It's not my thing. But my family made me go because it was a party, and I got to sing one of my. It was either Supermodel or I Kissed a Girl, and I walked out. Maybe I had a couple beers, and I overheard someone say, "She didn't do a really good job, did she?"
I've just been told I'm coming through a bit quieter. Does this sound any better?
It sounds so much better.
I will just hold the microphone up here. Then that's all there is to it.
Thank you.
That'll help a bit. So getting on a bit. So like when so you've got your own night now, and then you get from there to your first album. Like, how did you get discovered?
Well, interesting enough, I was moving to New York City. And so I was going to do my last night, my goodbye. And I didn't have anything in New York. It was just, I felt like I had friends there, and I thought, you know, all the cool music came there, and it was time. I did as much as I could in Denver, and, you know, I had nothing planned in New York. But the day, my last concert, it was like, you know, goodbye Denver, and, you know, everyone was celebrating, and a guy happened to be I don't know what he was doing at the Holiday Inn, but there was an A&R guy from a record company who happened to be in Colorado. I think he was skiing, and then he was in Denver, and he was at the club, and you know, happened to walk in, and he really liked what I did, and he was like, "Would you like to come down, and I'd like to hear more about your stuff," and it was one of those, you know, dreamlike things. I got discovered
And how
at the
was it
Holiday Inn.
of all places? So like, what's it like? And then going into the studio, had you done anything in studios before? Had you been around them before, or was that kind of just a new
Well,
experience?
yeah, but it was not much at all. And then the my A&R person who I loved, Susan Dotis, and we were thinking about the different producers, and I was completely intimidated. I had no idea what to do, and she was a huge fan of Todd Rundgren's, and so and I was a fan of Todd's, but you know how there's certain people who are like fanatics.
Yeah.
I wasn't quite there, but I was there. I mean, I loved his stuff so much, but so he was producing people. He produced, bands that I liked. Um, and so that was my first time ever in the studio. I went down to Woodstock, went up to Woodstock where he has his studio and worked a month. You stay with him. And it was a really interesting experience, I have to say.
And so Todd produced on Things Here Are Different, your first album, and
He did.
I Kissed a Girl came out was on the album. Like that was.
No. That was an album in 1990.
I'm getting my
And
album confused. Sorry.
and so that was earlier. And then I got dropped from I got dropped from the label. It didn't sell.
Okay.
Oh, I did another record that never came out that was produced by Joe Jackson, by the way.
Okay, then tell us about that. That's a story.
Well, it wasn't that good. I think you realize when people who you really adore and people who you think are great, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily good producers.
Okay.
Or the way that they deal with the artist. But I think that it was also with me, I was so intimidated also. It's like, so then when it was time to do, I got a new record deal, and the one with Kiss the Girl, it was like, you know what? I'm just going to go in with my friends and kind of self-produce and have them. And it was so much fun. It was so great. I let myself go, and we experimented. And the great thing was at that time during it, there was no, I don't think the label at first gave any direction or said that, it should sound like this or that. So we kind of just did whatever we wanted. And
See, this is interesting though. I would have thought that it could have been intimidating having an album which didn't come out and which you walked away from to then go to producing one yourself. But it sounds like it was very freeing.
so freeing. But also I think I grew up as an artist and a person. I always think I'm still evolving, and I was a late bloomer. So I think that, and part of it was having confidence, which is something you always have to learn. I think with Todd and with Joe Jackson, it was not, working with people that you loved, and these were famous people, and I kind of didn't give I didn't give myself the power to say, hey, that idea sucks, I've got a better one.
It's finding your voice.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, that's a continuing thing that I always have to learn.
Which is funny because, in your art and in your performances, it's hard to believe that you had, you struggle with that.
Well, I think I struggle with it with, decision making. But once I think I'm there, or when I'm performing, I feel I've got it. I feel grounded, and I feel like here I'm performing. It's live. There's nothing else I can do. Here it is, and no more decisions to make. No one telling me to do anything. I'm just going at it, and I think that sense of fearlessness I mean, maybe as you get older, you get that more, but I always thought, why don't I have that in the rest of my life? That sense of certainty, of spontaneity, that if something fucks up, whatever, big deal. You just get up and go with it.
Well, to work out how to bring that into your whole life, I'm sure we'd all like to hear the secret.
Oh, well, I'm still learning. I think age helps a little bit. Sometimes I think you get just like, how do you get over stage fright, or you just do it a lot. You just keep playing, and then finally you're like, oh.
Yeah, hitting my 40s, I think, helped a lot with confidence for me.
What did?
Hitting my 40s. You were saying about like
Yeah,
older. I agree, totally.
Like I wish my 20s. Don't you wish you knew what you do now in your 20s as far as that sense of self?
Yeah. This wisdom in the younger body would be great.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
I know.
I'm sure a lot more wisdom would help as well, but we'll get there.
Like, yeah, wisdom, like those mean girls in 7th grade. I wish I would have had that, ability to say, you know what? A few years from now, you're not going to feel, you're not, a few years from now, you're marrying this guy that is a real asshole. I just want you to know that.
I did want to, like I mentioned, I Kiss a Girl, that song is amazing. I find it's a really beautiful song, and it sort of shows, I think, like a lot of maturity as an artist very early on, but with the most fun video. Can you tell us a bit about writing it and maybe like doing the video?
The video. So, wrote Kissed a Girl kind of as a didn't think it was actually going to be on the record. And I didn't think it would, because it was, even as on the surface, as kind of light and funny it was, there was still, I hoped to underneath have like the insidious gay agenda coming up and rising. But, there was nothing like that at the time. And, but the video, we had so much fun. I've always had this thing for Pulp Fiction of the 50s, of they were the paperbacks that the 50s and early 60s that mostly guys would buy, that would be, titillating slightly, and there would always be the two unhappy housewives that would somehow end up in evil Greenwich Village in New York City and end up getting it on. But it just had that kind of 50s look and sensibility to it, so we wanted that in the video, kind of a Pulp Fiction. And we had my next door neighbor, who I have the crush on. Well, I'm married to Fabio. You guys know who Fabio is in the video. Yeah. It was funny getting him. It was really funny getting him. I don't think he really got exactly what was going on, but he was really sweet. And then the only bad thing about it was, at the end, we were supposed to have a real kiss. I was going to have a kiss with this other woman, and it was going to be the first one ever, really, on MTV, or at that time on TV at all. And then the last minute, I guess the label decided that was not going to be good. So at the end, they had me pregnant with Fabio's baby. It was like, oh no. But it still was really, it was those days when people put money into videos. So it was a 2-day shoot, and it was pretty, I still think it's a really great video.
Yeah, I mean, and there's something about the lyrics of that song. I'm just going to like blow your spot up for a second here. It's just like the way you describe like that thing of feeling other in the song, like we laughed at the world. They can have their diamonds. We'll have our pearls. I think that's just like a wonderful metaphor. It's just lovely. And just little things in there, like, and then I felt a hand above my knee. It's kind of suggestive without, being salacious about it. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, and that's what's great about thank you is you, you know, I think it was taken from maybe the influences of songwriting from my youth of writing stories that have different levels to them.
Yeah,
It's not. There's a song like I was really sad when John Prine died because I loved him. I got to open up for him, and he was a writer that was able to have like a really sweet melody, and on the surface it's sweet and you can sing it, but underneath it's like, oh my God, this is about a Vietnam vet coming home as a junkie, and
yeah.
it's and not the Kiss the Girl, but that's a bad example. But I like having stories and having different levels of meaning to them.
Well, I think there's that thing where it's like it's obviously about something very specific, that song, but like I grew up kind of feeling a bit other than, just someone who was bullied at school, who kind of had a different way of seeing things. And when I heard that song, it just like I got that feeling of just being a bit other than the rest of the world. I think I love that about it.
Yeah, and that's what you hope to. That's as an artist, to me, that's the best thing that you can hope to do more than unit sales or anything that somehow you your feelings and the reason you wrote it, someone else gets it and they get something out of it.
I certainly did anyway. I'd like to talk about some of the kind of other stuff you tackle in your songs because you're not afraid to go somewhere with your songs. So like there's like things about anorexia, LGBTQ issues, jealousy, religion, and the loss of it, unhealthy patriotism and sexism. Like how do you do you feel you're being brave when you write these songs, or do you just write just like this is what I feel I have to get out there?
Well, I don't feel I'm being brave. It's what I want to write, I think. And I also think I always try to or think about what are people not writing about now? What are people not writing about now? And so you'd say that the song about Lucy at the gym, there hadn't been a song about, woman or teen, suffering from an eating disorder. I'll write topical political songs. I've written a few in these last couple weeks, and I don't think I attempt to write them. That's what I want to write. That's
Yeah.
what, and to my detriment at times, as far as being a successful pop artist, is that I'm not, and I don't know if it's my forte. I have friends who are one friend who's really a successful pop songwriter for other people, and it's a formula. You work with other people, you get your top lines, you do all this, and I've always thought, God, I should just start trying to do that. But part of it is I'm too lazy and I'm so not interested. I'm not interested. I think I just want to write what I want to write, and hopefully it has an audience for it that understands, not understands, but that just relates.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever written something gone? Is this too much? Like, is there ever like one you've thought about holding back, or just I got to say this?
No, there's times I've written things like right now the situation, and it's like episodes of the Black Mirror in the United States these last few months, if not year,
Yeah.
and and there's like 20 outrages a day, you know, especially from Trump and his, you know, the people that aren't doing, you know, his fans. I like to, you know, yesterday and today, there's people who are having protests and saying, we don't want to, you know, we're going to liberate ourselves. So they're hanging out with each other and hugging each other and having protests so they don't have to social distance. And I'm like, holy, holy smoke, you know. And there's lots of, they have lots of conspiracy theories, and Bill Gates is the one who started the virus, you know,
Yeah.
crazy. So I'll start writing that, but I'll figure it out. I don't want it to be a song that's like, you know, fuck the man, you know, or, you know, these guys are complete idiots. So I want to figure out a smart way to do it, a smart way to. So I think I stop myself if I think something's too pandemic, or it's it feels too, like I said, one dimensional. But I want to write it, and that's you know, like for instance, I want to write a song. You know, just hearing a story of seniors that have been, you know, or locked up and, you know, for a month, and they can FaceTime their grandkids and kids, but just, you know, that's, you know, that's tough. A lot of people must be feeling, you know, so long, have so much anxiety and loneliness, and
Yeah, I mean, one of the songs which springs to my mind was America Back. Like, it was one of the most perfect metaphors for everything. Like, you say you want your America back, well, what the fuck do you mean? That's just, it was so on point. It's like perfect.
well, yeah, I mean, but and the great thing is, I need to write a new one because I want my America back now. You
Yeah, you
know,
need a sequel. Now I want
years
my America
later,
back.
now I want my America back. But yeah, I had to figure out. I wanted to write a song about the anti-immigrant sentiment in America, you know, and talking about it. I thought, oh, I'd go through the history of it, you know, from you know, when my grandparents came in, from the Italians and the Jews and the Chinese and now the Mexicans. So it was kind of a funny little thing, and then, you know, it was like, so it was a little story song, but then the chorus, I'm going to give it to you with a bang. Yeah.
And the like another one which springs to mind is "Letting Go of God," which that was came out the Jill and Julia show. Am I correct in saying?
Jill and Julia show, that was actually an assignment song for her. Julia Sweeney, I don't know if you guys, she's just one of the most brilliant comedians, and she has one woman shows. She's just, she had she was in Saturday Night Live, and she had the character Pat she was known for, but she had one woman shows that she was known for called I forget, the one about having cancer, and then she had one about becoming an atheist, calling Letting Go of God. So she asked me if I would write the theme song for it. So that was fantastic. And it's very sweet. It's a very sweet. I had to write the lyrics. I made it very all the young dudes kind of, you know, anthemic.
Yeah, it's one of the sweetest expressions of atheism I've ever heard.
I know, because you know what? I got to be around a lot of you know, Julia's compadres, and we would do things for the Freedom for Religion Foundation. And I found also there was a few of the atheists that were as almost as dogmatic as the fundamentalist Christians in America. It was a really interesting mix. Just a few, you know, that was like, you know, people want to believe as long as they don't, you know, make us do it, you know.
And there's another song which I remember you talking about on, I believe it was one of your live gigs at Joe's Pub, and it was. Sorry, I'm thinking for a second. Sorry, it was Nothing to Prove, which you wrote on a drip, a morphine drip, I believe. Can you tell us about that?
Well, yeah, it was actually, that was really, really funny. I was actually meeting a different, trying to get a record deal, and it was just like, well, actually, the real story was that Julia and I, someone came to see our show. We had the Jill and Julia show in LA, and it was someone from Fox TV, and saying that this would make a fantastic show. And she was really young, and Julia is such a cynic, and she goes, well, do you imagine us just writing it, or do you imagine us being it? Because you realize we're like middle age. And the woman goes, oh no, I mean, no, you guys could be in it. I mean, the Golden Girls was a big hit.
I bet that was a lovely thing to hear.
And Julia was kicking me under the table, and I was about to throw up. I had to hold back my laughter so much. It was the funniest thing. But I wrote a song but I made it more about, I went into a record company to get a record deal, and here was this person. There was nothing to prove. Fuck you, kid. I got nothing to prove. But the interesting thing was, I saw her later. She goes, I really loved it. My bosses didn't go for it, but she ended up being a really lovely person. So. And actually, you know what? A Golden Girls thing, I'd friggin' go for it. That's a great show.
It is a great show. Yeah, it is.
It's a great show. It's hysterical. Those women are badasses.
And also, when you hear what ages they were when they recorded it, like by today's standards, that's not old at all.
Oh my God, they weren't old at all. Like, the movie The Graduate?
Yeah.
Did you ever see The Graduate?
Yeah. Great film.
Yeah, of course. So I think that Mrs. Robinson was the same age as him. They just...
Well, that's the one with Indiana Jones as well. Sean Connery was the same age as Harrison Ford by like 2 years or something.
Like Doctor God, was a funny one.
Yeah. Like another thing I wanted to get into was, you now like directly self-distribute your records. Kind of, what was the decision like doing that? Was that kind of just something you just felt the need to do? You wanted to kind of like take ownership over it?
Well, I thought, who's going to give me a deal anyway that makes any sense? And so I thought, I'm just going to just do it myself and do a Kickstarter for it. And it's been great, except for the fact organization is not my forte. And, there was some mistakes along the way, hiring people that weren't great. So I think it's wonderful, but I know people that are sharper at the business things and than I am. So I'm learning little by little that it's not my forte, and to get people to help you out who maybe that is. So, but still, yeah, I mean, the record business is, such a shit show. I mean, they're doing good. The companies are still really doing good. I mean, the things, Spotify, streaming services, they get their share, and we get, it's such a ripoff. I mean, songwriters and musicians, everyone's really hurting right now. And even before the virus, more so, everyone I know, right now their gigs are canceled. My play was canceled or postponed, all my gigs. People, I've got gigs on the book for June, but I seriously doubt they're going to happen.
Yeah, it's such an uncertain time for everyone.
Yeah. Can I ask you
Yeah,
questions?
yeah, please.
When you look out from across the pond
Yeah.
at us, and you see things like, I don't know if you see the news and you see these kind of crazy, like I said, protests of people that don't want to socially distance themselves. They're kind of, you know, holding their Trump flags, and they carry automatic weapons with them while they're protesting. What do you think?
It's difficult. We've got some of the same stuff. We've still got like some morons who are burning down 5G towers and stuff like that. There's still some of that, but it's almost like our government. We've got a Tory government at the moment, so like that's
Right,
our
you have.
win. I'm not a fan, but they've got a line. Like here's the level of evil we will be. Like we will be, you know, the standard kind of level of right wing kind of evil. For my liking, like I'm sorry if there's any kind of Tory voters like listening, but there we go. But it's almost like Trump is beyond having any of those. Like he will tear down the system to benefit himself. Like the perpetual motion things, which keep everything running. He doesn't give a shit. Like if he has to throw the World Health Organization under the bus to make himself look good, and like it isn't his fault, he wasn't prepared, he's happy to do that. And I think that's what empowers what you're seeing over there, and what empowers kind of like the racists and like all this. Like we had a bit of this with the Brexit and stuff that kind of empowered some people on the far right, but not to this level. I just think it's amazing that over kind of 4 years that the American system's managed to keep some of his stuff in check, but it's kind of just eroding by the day, it seems. So I'm sorry to be like that's how it seems from here. I don't know.
Well, that's how it seems from here, but we're in it.
Yeah.
It's yeah, I meant that you have a complete insane narcissist I meant the person is he's a complete mental case, and the worst is there's people that know better.
Oh, Jill?
There's people that know better that aren't doing anything about it. That to me is even more criminal than having this completely insane person up there.
Yeah, that's the thing. When you
And
go through the impeachment trial, and
yeah,
like
it's weird. And the other
Republicans
thing about, I think, that's happening to all of us, even though, you know, we always thought, you know, America, we're number one at everything. I mean, it's science, rock and roll. We're the leading nation, and all of a sudden we're like, oh my God, we have a bad mortality rate. We're the only first world country that doesn't have health insurance. But I mean, so this is a strange kind of awakening. It's to me, I was telling people, it made me it's kind of like when I left school and I left for college and realized my mother really wasn't that good of a cook, you know. But terrible. Yeah. But you realize, oh no, we are number one. We are number one in deaths right now in the virus, but we are not number one. And I think it's a very strange thing for Americans to feel that we're not number one.
Well, it's like there are so many people in his own party who do know better. Oh, sorry,
I lost you. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Hello? Can you hear me? Hello, Jill.
Somehow I lost you.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you still. Can you hear me?
Hold on.
Okay. I hope everyone, like, if anyone's listening, if you can just write in the comments if you can hear me right now, that'd be really great. So I know if it's my end, or it might just be Jill's connection.
I can't figure out.
Oh, have we just lost Jill here? Again, if you're watching this right now, please just put in the messages if you can hear me still. Hopefully we'll reconnect with Jill. We're having a really good conversation there, I thought. Really getting into some stuff. I'm really enjoying this, and I hope we haven't lost Jill for the night. But again, if you can hear me, please send a message. I am watching the messages come through on my screen here. I'm just going to check on the Facebook group. Oh, I think we might have Jill back. Jill, are you there? Oh, we're not. So I've got to re-add you to the call. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, and we have Jill back.
So where were we? Oh, we're not number one.
Yeah, we're in a dystopian nightmare.
Well, yeah, and I think that it's really for Americans. It's that you know, and there's those ones that you know, people. Well, you've got the crazies that are out there protesting and you know, wanting to not be part of the global community in this, and then you have the rest of us that it's almost a mourning period, actually, in a strange way.
What do you think of the left's response to it? So, like, you work with Bernie there. He seems like the real deal. I think he was the best hope to really work against Trump. He was kind of like so far the other way that he could kind of like really make some radical changes. But then the left didn't want to go with that. Like, I don't think sometimes the left's bold enough. What do you think?
I think right now you know, Bernie was a real gentleman on this. So, you know, people complained about the last time that he might have ruined the Hillary thing. But I think that everyone is all in on Biden for two reasons. One is our eyes are on the prize. We cannot have this. We cannot have 4 more years of that. We cannot. Number two, I believe things have completely changed and there's a whole new generation. And this is going to, you know, people I knew that thought Bernie's ideas were crazy and commie are now like, oh, this is what we need to do. You know, this is what we're doing now. This is, you know, we need healthcare. So I think that people on the left and a new, you know, newer generation and are making deals. I think that it's Biden represents, yes, the different generation and the centrist and all that stuff, and you know, his corporate you know, connections. But I really think that the left, not just that the left is, they made a deal with Bernie and that some of his ideas will come in. But even despite that, I think this virus has shown so many people that weren't quite willing to go Democratic Socialist Bernie that are like, oh yeah, that's what we're asking for now. That's what we need to.
Sorry, I was just going to ask you a bit about like working with Bernie, and what do you think he will have changed that will go into Biden's campaign now?
Well, like I said, you know, you can, at the same time, you can be a little cynical. Like I said, the eyes on the prize now is just to get rid of this existential danger to our nation and the country. But I think there will be a groundswell. There'll be new congressmen, and I think that there will be, once the election's there will be a pull, and there'll be a push and pull to move the party left and to bring it back. But I think I believe there'll be progress, even though there'll be, you know, that's just me being an optimist.
Okay.
That's just me being an optimist. I just think that there'll be. I think that it's changed what the public is thinking. I think this is really this virus that these months have maybe, and maybe I'm just being an optimist, have opened people's eyes and hearts.
We could do with a bit of that right now. That's fine. And speaking of like optimism, I love the kind of optimism of Bernie's message. Can you just tell us a bit about like working with Bernie Sanders and like going out and performing at his campaigns?
Well, this was mostly, I did it the first campaign, and it was just so much fun because I mean, 4 years ago, no, it was like 6 years ago, I got the call from my friend who worked at Revolution Messaging. They actually worked with Obama on his digital media, and he got a call from Bernie Sanders, and it was like, yeah, Bernie's cool. Let's work with Bernie. You know, the only socialist in the in the Senate ever. Well, in the last how many years, but. No one thought that there would be the groundswell for him. I remember the turning point was, so he asked me to do entertainment, bring some people in to work with Bernie. And I remember there was a time in Los Angeles where we were having, he was speaking. And we thought we'd have a couple hundred people there. And there were lines around the block. No one could get in, and it was a lot of young people, and we were all looking at each other like, what is going on? This is crazy. And it was, what was so exciting back then was to see, especially, I mean, it was a great mix of people. It was like there were some old folks like me, or old hippies who were like, yeah, Bernie. And then you saw this whole new generation of kids. It feels like wanting to be involved in the process and caring and wanting to know about politics. And whereas I think that, for 20 years, kids didn't give a shit unless it had to do about pot laws, So it was so exciting, and it's so taken aback that you'd see, and then you realize, oh yeah, they grew up differently than I did. I grew up thinking that, and there was a little bit of it where my parents did better than their parents. Maybe I would do better than our parents, and you felt this post-war safety net. Not everyone, more privileged people. But then you saw a generation that felt like they didn't have that safety net. And when I went to college, man, I went to Colorado University, and it was so cheap, I don't know. And then you see all these people with, I know so many people with so much college debt, and it just seems so crazy. And so I'm rambling on, but what I'm saying is it was so exciting to see a whole generation of people where you think of American kids just not giving a shit.
Yeah. To bring it back to you, though, Jill, I love the fact that you've got a very personal relationship with your audience. I think that kind of always shines through for me. And you've even released some of your stuff directly online. So you released an album for recorded live at Joe's Pub, which I've got, and you kind of like very giving with your music. Do you think? Are you ever worried about doing that? Like, if you're giving away music where you are self-publishing, that you won't kind of make money from it, or is it just kind of really nice to have that relationship with your audience?
Well, right now it's a moot point because with streaming, no one's making. What did I say? You have to have. There was something like 385,000 hits for an artist to make of a song to make a minimum wage.
Yeah.
And and people that I know that are, that have had hits songwriting. Well, the Spotify, it's in streaming services. Musicians we're so fucked. We didn't have the power that, say, like SAG or the Screen Actors Guild or they have. There's no musicians union here with health insurance. People are really, really suffering here. So the point of giving away music for free, you're doing it anyway.
Yeah. So, like, what do you think the way forward is for musicians at the moment, or just like you're fucked? Is there any hope you can offer us, Jill?
Well, yes, there is, and I go on these panels and seminars of musicians who, what future of music, and they always deal with the people like Taylor Swift, or what are they going to do? I mean, when I first started, a middle class, working class musician, songwriter could actually make a living. You'd play a club, or if you had your record out, people bought music. But I have to tell you, in this time, and you can't overuse your Kickstarters or your Patreons, because I do that, but I try not to overdo it, because people get inundated by it so much. I started when I was one of the first to start it back then. But I have to tell you, I think, let's just go back to open mic nights. I've been doing these FaceTimes. I'm going to do another one Monday. And I'm like, you guys, I need to buy a new iPad. So I'm singing, I'm doing a whole show, you guys. Hey, tip. I'm passing the bucket around. I think that people are going to have to do a lot of people, and I'm talking about your working class and your middle class and working class artists, and perform. I think there's something kind of amazing about what's been going on with Zoom and Facebook Live. And I know a lot of artists are actually doing, making some progress. I mean, think about it. I'm doing a Facebook Live, and I hadn't thought about it, or Zoom. And there's fans of mine in London that haven't seen me in ages. There's fans in Oklahoma City that haven't seen me in ages. And now they can come see me.
Yeah, we need you back in the UK sometime.
You know what? When I can travel, I will go, because I love it there so much.
Well, I've got at the bottom of the screen right now for people. It's jillsobule.com. Buy some physical media, or buy at least the download. So
I'll tell you what they can do.
Money.
Here's some really good things they can do.
Please.
Is you can go to Jill at go to my Instagrams, because I always have updates. My Instagram or my Facebook is even better than going on there, because I have I got to get my website better, but I have updates on when I'm doing shows. Like, I'm going to do one Monday. I have updates, like there's a product that I'm here. Check this out. For Jill at jillsobule.com. I am selling. Well, I have this thing called Jill in a Bottle, which is a drive, a flash drive with over 100 songs on it. And I don't have access where I am to my storage unit, but for half the price, I'm going to just send you the files, the virtual Jill in a Bottle, and you'll have amazing rarities. And I'm singing all the young dudes with Billy Bragg in London. I'm singing with Cyndi Lauper, my Mexican wrestler song. Woo, woo, woo. So there's things like this that we do.
Well, just to round off this wonderful conversation, I've had so much fun tonight. But one thing which I usually like to ask my artists or the guests I have on the show is about a bit of advice they can give me. But during these hard times, what I'm asking is, what advice have you got for people to cope with the COVID crisis and just how they're feeling with it all? How are you getting on and how are you coping with it?
You know what? I'm not doing so bad because I'm actually taking this time to calm down a little bit. I'm the hardest thing is to make a little schedule, like to say, okay, I'm going to write for a couple hours. I'm going to go, here I can go walk outside. But I think to take advantage of the time, when else are you going to have this time?
Excellent.
And watch great old movies.
So have you got any movie recommends for people?
Well, I like really old. I've been going on a kind of strange. Do you guys have the Criterion channel?
We don't, I'm afraid.
It's great. They curate it really well. They have art house movies and old movies. But I've been on a kind of old noir, like Double Indemnity. But also, I've been going on a kind of 1970s, like paranoid. The CIA kind of spy stuff, like 3 Days of the Condor. I've been on a 70s kick for some reason. Chinatown, The Godfathers. That was such a great era for movies.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Jill. If you wouldn't mind just holding on the line for a minute, I'm just going to wrap up the show. Then I'll quickly talk to you before we go, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, guys, I am now putting up my own self-promotion. So we've now just got online. Actually, it's wrong, that banner, so I'll take it down. It's drsquee.com. If you want to find the show, we're going to be, as well as putting eventually up all these Facebook Lives on as podcast episodes, we're also going to have some exclusive ones. The first episode, which is going to be coming out very soon, is with Tim Brooke Taylor, the member of the Goodies, the guy who co-wrote the Four Yorkshiremen sketch. Sorry, I haven't a clue on the radio. He recorded an interview with us just before he sadly recently passed away. So that's going to be coming up as our first episode. So please do tune in for that and all our podcast episodes. But for now, thank you so much, Jill Sobule. I've had so much fun. I hope
you asked the good questions.
Oh, thank you. That's very sweet of you to say. But for now, for Facebook Live, I've been Dr. Squee. With me has been Jill Sobule. Say goodbye to everyone. And we will catch you with another Dr. Squee show next weekend, where I will be talking to Dave Stoker, who is the great nephew of Bram Stoker.
Wow.
Bram Stoker, sorry. Bram Stoker, who he'll talk about the influences on his great uncle and how he's gone on to write a new Dracula book himself, as well as looking into things which went into the book. So please join us then. But for now, goodbye from the Dr. Squee Show.